Zelensky telling ABC News he thinks the Biden administration is overstating the crisis.
Where do you think the White House and the Pentagon are going wrong in their analysis?
He says there are risks in repeatedly talking about the threat of war, and he says, in his opinion, this is a mistake. Tonight saying he's getting close to moving US troops to the region, though not to Ukraine.
We're moving US troops to Eastern Europe and the NATO countries in the near term. Not a lot.
And out there to everybody, William B. Strong here. It's 31 January 2022. You could see from those clips I showed you up front that the crisis in the Ukraine continues. This is a crisis now between not only Putin and the Russians, but Ukraine, a sovereign nation, and potential allies in the NATO forces that are surrounding in the area. Now, Ukraine is not a NATO member. You have to remember that. So NATO, including the United States, has no treaty obligations to protect or defend the nation of Ukraine. So Ukraine is basically on their own. Now, I would say at this point there's about a 60% chance that Putin and the Russians will have an incursion. They may have a deliberate invasion of the country. You have to understand the historical roots between Russia and the Ukraine. Kiev, the capital city of Ukraine, has been called the mother of all cities by Russians for many, many centuries. So Putin has a lot of motivation to bring Ukraine back into the Russian umbrella. Therefore, he may not need to make up something to go and grab it. He's already grabbed Crimea. He took some sanctions on that, and now he's been threatened with more sanctions, economic sanctions, financial sanctions against himself and a lot of his buddies who have banking matters overseas. This is probably the right time. If he wants Ukraine, this is probably the right time, and that's based on the thinking that he feels Ukraine is going to be accepted into NATO. That's probably about an 80% chance that's going to happen. I'm not sure exactly why it hasn't happened yet. I want to look into that a little bit further, and I'll get back to you on that. But I'd say he feels that if he doesn't move on them now, he's not going to be able to move on them if they go into NATO soon. So I'm sure that's of great concern to him. So I give it about a 60-40 chance, 60% chance of the Russians invading, I hate that word sometimes, invading, but making an incursion into the Ukraine. Now the question is, what will the Ukrainian president do? Will he issue a request from the nearby NATO countries to come to his assistance? I'm surprised he hasn't said anything like that. But as you can see in some of the video, he basically says, hey, calm down, Joe Biden. Calm down, USA. Calm down, NATO. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. Is it just another Russian large exercise as a threat? I don't know. I think we're going to find out sometime after the Olympics start. Putin doesn't want to raise this issue during the Olympics, or not at least during the start of the Olympics. We'll see if he waits the full 2.5 weeks for the Olympics to play out, so he doesn't try to steal highlights or headlines from his buddy in China. So we'll see. But I think this is going to happen. Now, the one thing, being ex-military myself, you don't like to have your troops sitting too long in the cold doing nothing, okay? They get a little tired of that. Their morale goes down. You have to keep supplying them. There's a lot of issues, logistical issues. So if anything is going to happen, it's going to happen before the end of February. It's going to happen before the end of February. So we'll wait and see what happens there. So that's kind of my highlight and update for today. I don't have anything else for you. We'll see how this plays out. The only other thing there is a big meeting at the UN. I believe it's the UN Security Council. It's one of the committees there, and they're going to be talking about Ukraine and a possible Russian incursion. And Russia has already come out and said that they believe this is just a big PR stunt. So everybody's lining up and getting their dominoes in order. So when this thing goes down, obviously the Russians want satisfaction. They want promises that the Ukraine will never be taken into NATO, to the NATO alliance. U.S. and NATO is not going to make that promise. So right there is a major sticking point. And that could be one of the reasons that the Russians launched their attacks on. That's it from here on State of Affairs. You're speaking with William B. Strong.